So welcome to the Grab a Towel Servant Leadership course. It's great to have you with us. A little while ago, earlier last year, when we released the book, Grab a Towel, one of my colleagues at work, I was explaining that the book was on servant leadership, and she came up to me excitedly, and she said, "Grab a towel, where did you get the name from?" And I said, "Oh, it's from John chapter 13, Jesus in the Bible, washing the disciples' feet." And she looked a little bit disappointed. And I said, what? She said, "No, I thought you got it from the book, The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy." I looked a bit puzzled, a bit confused at her. But she went on to explain. She said, according to The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, it was a book written in the 1970s by a guy called Douglas Adams. He says, a towel, like this one, is about the most massively useful thing an interstellar hitchhiker can have. See, The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, it's about people who travel the universe. It's a science fiction book, and they travel the universe from one planet to the next. And the author of The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, he said that a towel has both practical and psychological value. It has practical value because you can wrap it around you, like our beautiful Grab a Towel towels. You can wrap it around you. You can lie on it when you're on the desert, the hot deserts of some of the planets. Some planets are covered in water. You can use it to hoist it as a sail, and you can go across the water. He says you can use it for hand-to-hand combat, like kids do, and whipping one another. He said you can ward off noxious fumes by covering your mouth, and you can even dry yourself when you're wet. It has practical value. But also, according to The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, it has psychological value as well. I'm going to read from the book. It says, if a strag, by the way, because I'm sure you're wondering what is a strag. Well, a strag apparently is someone who doesn't hitchhike from planet to planet. A strag is someone who stays put. He says, if a strag sees someone, discovers that a hitchhiker has his towel with him, he will automatically assume that he is also in possession of a toothbrush, a washcloth, soap, tin of biscuits, flask, compass, map, ball of string, gnat spray, wet weather gear, spacesuit, etc., etc. Furthermore, the strag will then happily lend the hitchhiker any of these or a dozen other items that the hitchhiker might accidentally have lost. What the strag will think is that any man who can hitch the length and breadth of the galaxy, rough it, slum it, struggle against terrible odds, win through, and still knows where his towel is, clearly is a man to be reckoned with. The towel has great physical and psychological benefit. Well, I believe that Jesus shows us that a towel has great practical and spiritual value. Not only did Jesus use it to wash the disciples' feet, but the simple object of a towel gives us a key to understanding Jesus' approach to servant leadership. Consider the scene in John chapter 13. Jesus is in a room maybe a bit like this room that we're in today. He's with his disciples. They're preparing for the Passover meal. He had lived with them, served with them alongside them, ministered with them for over 3 years. And now it says in John chapter 13, in the Word it says, Jesus was now going to show them the full extent of his love. He was going to reveal how much he loved them. Because Jesus had already told them that he'd come, the Son of Man had come not to be served, but to serve. So he did what no one expected him to do. They were at the meal, they were at the table. The muck and dung of the Jerusalem streets was still clinging to their feet because there was no slave present to wash their feet. And certainly the disciples weren't going to wash one another's feet. It was a task too demeaning, even for a Jewish slave to do. So they only had Gentile slaves wash the feet of the Jews. But what does Jesus do? He gets up, he takes a towel, he wraps it around his waist, and he kneels at the feet of the disciples and washes the dirt and filth from their feet. This is even more remarkable when you think who was in the room with Jesus at the time. There were the 12 disciples. One of them was going to deny him 3 times, Peter. 10 of them were going to run away when he came to that moment of being arrested in the Garden of Gethsemane. And one of them was actually the cause of him being arrested, Judas, who betrayed him. Even though Jesus knew that Judas was going to betray him, he still knelt at his feet and washed Judas's feet. And then Jesus said this to his disciples in John chapter 13, verse 15, which is our critical verse for this course. He said, "I have set you an example that you should do as I have done for you." I have set you an example that you should do as I have done for you. See, Grab a Towel is about becoming a Christ-centered servant leader. Servant leadership doesn't just happen by chance. It's actually counterintuitive. It goes against everything else in our culture about leadership. Rather, servant leadership, as Jesus showed, it's a choice. So this course is for people who want to make that choice, like you today, that choice to grab a towel, to follow Christ's example, and to make a massive difference in the world through servant leadership. See, there's 3 ways that this course seeks to help us follow the example of Christ. The first is this: it provides a critique of what contemporary leadership is all about. We look at the world and actually we see there's more teaching on leadership than ever before. There's seminars on leadership. There's countless books written on the subject. You can go to university and study, but everybody says, where are the leaders? Where are the leaders? We need leaders. We need godly leaders. One author wrote this, Omar Haque, he said, we need a new kind of leadership, and we need it now. Well, I would argue actually the new kind of leadership we need is to rediscover the ancient leadership of Jesus Christ. Not just to discover it in theory, but to put it in practice. We need to get back to basics and follow the example of Christ. So this course provides a critique and sets the example of Christ as a challenge for us to follow. The second thing the course does, it presents a context. The context that I've written the book and the context that I'm from is the context of leading a missional organization called the Message Trust. And we're all about raising up transformational leaders. We see leadership doesn't happen in a vacuum. Leadership happens in a context. All of you, whether you're here today or whether you're watching this on the film, you're in a context. How can you lead within that particular context? My own leadership development has been in the context of serving in ministry for over 20 years on the African continent. And my passion and my desire is to create an environment for emerging leaders to flourish in faith and life. That is the context that this has been written in. But you need to take these principles and apply it within your own context. How can you grab a towel within your environment? And the third thing that this book and this material, this course is all about, is to provoke a conversation. A conversation that seeks to answer this question: what kind of leaders does God want us to be? What kind of leaders does God want you to be? And that's why we have this discussion around tables. Literally, we set a leader's table. As Jesus gathered around a table with his disciples, so we're gathering around a table and saying, let's discuss, let's interact, let's have accountability with one another. Let's spur one another on to become better leaders. So as part of this course, we want to grow together. And in the course, we study 8 hallmarks of Christ-centered servant leaders. We learn about them, we think about them, but most importantly, we grab a towel and we seek to apply them. So welcome to Grab a Towel, what we might call the hitchhiker's guide to servant leadership. Don't forget your towel. It has great practical and spiritual value as you seek to grow as a Christ-centered servant leader.